Hello, everyone. We'll get started in about a minute or so. But for now, how is everybody doing? Good. That's good. Nice. Awesome. Has anybody done web dev type things before? Or like what is sort of your experience? Nice. That's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Awesome. Wondering if anyone has any portfolio sites they've either worked on or if they're have looked into at least, and if they are excited to be able to get some experience with that through this workshop.
PHP is yeah, is something else, I think. Yeah, I've had a little bit of PHP experience before. Kind of cool, but I think there's a lot more better things out there. Awesome. With that, why don't we get started?
Okay. I will start us off here. So welcome to the Web Development Workshop. Today we're going to be working with the technologies React, JS, and Tailwind. And that's going to be for our styles, and React is for our front-end framework. So if you don't know me, I'm Owen. I am recently joined the Google Developer Students Club as an executive for the semester. And I've been a part of the club since first year. I am in my third year of computer science, and I am very excited to host my first executive meeting, and I hope everyone's ready to hopefully gain some more tools under their tool belt.
Awesome. I'm Gavin. I'm the GDC vice president. Yeah, I'm assuming most people already know me. So, yeah. Awesome.
All right. Well, I'll go over the agenda. So first, we'll go through how React works, the styling framework, especially Tailwind, and common web stacks, so the frameworks that people will be using. And then we'll actually have a code together session for building a portfolio site, and you guys will be able to take home code with you tonight. That will help you build a foundation of your portfolio site, hopefully in the future, and then attract some very good job offers. So first here, let me, I'm going to paste in the links here. I got some links there for Node, Git, and then there's some VS Code in there as well. So we'll need to have Node, which that'll let us run some commands to host our site locally. And then Git will allow us to run command line arguments to clone the repo right into your VS Code. And then if you're using any other code editor, will work as well. But we're going to be using VS Code for this demonstration at least. And yeah, that will be pretty much it. Once we have that, then once you clone it, then we'll be able to run it and start coding together. So I'll go into what is web development. So it's the process of building and maintaining web applications. So anything on the web, so any website will likely be running as a web application. They'll be using popular frameworks such as React as like a front end, and then usually they'll have like a Node.js or some other framework running the server backend for it. So front end, which means user interface. So this will be like client-side scripting, so HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And then it ensures that everything's responsive and has a very visually appealing user interface. because if you don't have any styles or you don't have JavaScript, HTML is basically just like a Word document in a way of just a shell of a website. And that allows you to style it. With backend development, this lets us have server logic. So this lets us script and allow to integrate routes into our web application. And then also database management and integration and handling the server-side processes and requests. And I'll pass it over to Kevin.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. I just want to see or know if anybody here has used React. You can put a little emoji or something in the chat there. Yeah, so if you are new to React or haven't used it or still like unsure what it is, yeah, okay, I see a lot of people have used it before. Awesome. Um, React is a open source JavaScript library. It's mainly built for like single page applications, like web apps, but you are able to sort of get around that constraint. It's also developed and maintained by Facebook as well. Um, React comes with a bunch of features that are really handy that help with the development process as well as the sort of like user experience part of it. I'll get into details just after this slide, but components-based architecture, a virtual DOM, declarative syntax, and efficient state management are just to name a few. So component-based architecture, it really focuses on the reusability and encapsulation um, of different components in your web app. So React, you're able to make like a button, for example, and take in like what the label of the button, and maybe if it's a button that takes you to a different web page or something, the link as well. And you can create that, and then in your actual application, you can just like import that button in, and then pass whatever it needs, so a label and a link, and then you're able to sort of have this button be reused a bunch of different times through your application, and you only have one place to change it. So that's really really handy. Um, yeah, the virtual DOM. So the DOM, when it comes to like web applications or like I'm thinking like Chrome or Firefox and that sort of thing, um, stands for the document object model. And React basically makes a copy of this. And will inject the code into there instead of the regular DOM. Now, the DOM is a sort of hierarchical structure that browsers use to interpret and render documents. If you sort of think about how HTML or XML are written, right? We use tags, and then if we want to have something in a certain way, we add other tags inside of the body tag and that sort of thing. Um, so the HTML itself is hierarchical, and so the DOM is just what it uses to render that stuff. And React makes a virtual copy. Yeah. And changes to the virtual DOM will actually end up being rendered to the real DOM. And this they have some backend sort of magic on that stuff that makes it much better for performance and just more efficient. The syntax of React is like a lot nicer than doing things in JavaScript. So if we look at these two examples here, on the left we have how you would do the same thing as the right side, just in JavaScript. So all we want to do is just print to the screen "Hello World." In JavaScript, we have 4 lines of code. The first one is we're creating an element on the document. We're adding some text to that "Hello World." We're setting the class attributes, and then we are pushing that element to the root element, or yeah, basically the document root. It might sound like it is much better, but trying to read it and that sort of thing gets very confusing if all your code and everything is based around this element dot inner HTML. So with React, what's kind of nice is we're able to basically make a function and have it return what what we want written in HTML. So it's this weird mix between HTML and JavaScript, which is really cool. Later on in this, and I think in the demo too, you'll actually see how we can have JavaScript functions sort of interact with our return value there. And this approach makes it much more readable and predictable and easier to sort of see what's happening. Efficient state management. So another big feature of React is we're able to manage the state of our components very easily. Um, because React has all these mechanisms for changes in our data or updating the data, we can uh, do so on the fly without adding too much logic or anything like that. In this example here, we have a counter, and we declare the counter as a variable. Const count set count is equal to useState. I'll get into states and hooks and stuff like that a little bit later. But we're basically just setting the count to 0. And then we have a button that will call the handle increment function here that sets the count to increment by 1, and we can increment it by 1. Yeah. So having these sort of mechanisms and everything makes it very easy for us to produce code, not necessarily in the same lines, but just in a more efficient, quicker, readable way. Yeah. React hooks. So, probably one of the biggest things about React is its hooks and the functions that it has. So it has features to help bind components together or manage different states or add side effects or other component logic. There's not a ton, but there is maybe a dozen or so hooks. Use state, use effect, use context, use reduce, use callback, use memo, use ref, use interpretive handle, use layout, use debug value, just to name a few. Now, the two major ones are use state and use effect. So, use state is used to have the current state of a sort of like a variable, and we can manipulate that by using the set um, sort of command thing. So the example I have here again is the count. We have this count, which is our variable. We have set count, which is our mechanism to manipulate the count. And we set it to use state is equal to 0. So when we use this use state, it knows in this array, this set count is going to be the sort of the manipulator or the facilitator, and this count is going to be the value. Um, and then in our function here, we can just call the set count is equal to the value plus 1. And then in our HTML, very similar to regular HTML, we just set the onClick to handle increment. And it will call this function, which will then call the set count, which will then increment the count and then print it out here. Now, use effect, on the other hand, is used for um, like monitoring like variables and doing something with that. Um, for example, it is very, very, very common to use a use effect to call APIs. Um, so here we have our use effect. I think I can draw on this. Turn on pen. We have our use effect here, and you'll see an important piece here is that there's nothing in this array. And so what that tells React when it renders this is um, don't wait on anything. Once the page is initialized, we can call this use effect. And so this use effect is pretty much just plain JavaScript to say, hey, like call this API, right, to get some data. And then we're going to set that data using our use state. Um, use the data that we got from the API and set it to the data variable here. Yeah, and then we can just like have JavaScript is kind of funky sometimes. We will call this fetch data because this is a Lambda function, and it will do that on initial page load. If we had the data in here instead, uh, if we had data in here instead, it's anytime this data object gets updated, this use effect will be called. Um, so I don't know exactly how you would want that done with an API call, but if we had um, maybe a UI element or something like that that we wanted to fetch or reload the screen when the data is sort of manipulated in some way, we could add the data into this guy and execute our use effect. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. Awesome. Yeah, so that was just a very quick sort of rendition of what React is. Now to just talk about styling frameworks and Tailwind. Um, So, like, it's very common for people to not like styling or designing websites by hand. Using CSS files is good if you have a lot of practice or you sort of know what you're doing. But a lot of the times, it can just get very frustrating, and you're not too sure on how to design things or even how to do it with CSS because there's so many different ways of doing the exact same thing. So styling frameworks simplify and streamline the development process. And a lot of the time they focus on using these utility classes for quick styling. Some examples that you might have heard of, like Bootstrap, Tailwind, Material CSS, or UI Kit. The two big ones is Bootstrap and Tailwind. Yeah, so how Tailwind works is it can be used with like any JavaScript library. I'm pretty sure you can also use it with regular HTML and everything too. And it's not tied to anything specific. Um, Tailwind does this just-in-time mode to add styles on the fly, reducing the CSS generated, meaning that your end result should be just the CSS that you are using, meaning better performance, um, like quicker rendering time, that sort of thing, smaller file sizes. Yeah, Tailwind allows for rapid prototyping by enabling quick styling adjustments through classes. Um, so if you can remember back, actually, I'll just go there. And remember back to this guy, this class name greeting. So this is how we would sort of do something with like a CSS file. Is we would have a whatever greeting.css, have our greeting tag, say that we want the text color to be blue. But with Tailwind, we're actually able to in that class name we can just say um, I don't really know it off the top of my head, but I think just blue, and it should make the text blue, or FS dash bold or something like that, and it will make the font size bold. Um, yeah, so that's what makes it a lot easier. Is you're not flipping through different files. You're not you don't have to overly complicate or overly think things. Um, you can just do everything in that class name. Now, you might think that that is kind of weird to do. We want to reduce the amount of code and increase the readability and everything. Wouldn't CSS files do that? Yes, but if you're following like React's component-based architecture, going back to the button example, you just have to make that button once, style it in there, and then you just call the button again wherever you need it. And if you want to change that button to instead of blue, it could be red. You just need to change it in one place instead of three or four places. kind of like OP. Yeah, exactly. So if you're following like design concepts and stuff like that, it should work out in your favor. Lastly, I just wanted to talk about popular web dev stacks. Now, we're really only focusing on the front end for today. We might do some back end stuff, maybe in a different workshop or something. Um, but we have the mean stack and the MERN stack, which are two very popular using MongoDB, Express, Node.js, and React or Angular. Um, another popular one is Spring Boot that uses like a JavaScript framework or Java framework, sorry. And like Time Leaf, I've used that once before. Feels kind of clunky, but it's pretty good. And another big one is Next.js, Nest.js, which uses, I think that's supposed to be Next.js. But yeah, awesome. Any questions about that stuff before we move on? If there is any questions or anything, feel free to pop it in the chat. I can help you. And I'm going to pass it on to Owen. Yeah.
So now we're going to go into, once I can share my screen here, then we'll go into actually coding the project side of a template. Entire screen of a template portfolio site here. It's here, so we'll start it off here. If you guys can see my screen here, and then we'll do a first command. So if you guys got Git installed, this will be the first command that you'll want to do if you're wanting to clone any repo, which then you'll see once you enter it, it will give you just a nice little command printout just saying like it's receiving all the objects, and it's basically cloning the whole repo right to your Visual Studio right now. So as we wait for this one to load up here.
Sorry, Owen. A couple of things. Your screen is black. Yeah. Do you want to try just resharing?
Yeah.
Awesome. I can see it. Can someone put a thumbs up? All good now. Oh, okay. Awesome.
Okay, great. Sounds good. Okay, sorry about that. So the first command that we put in was the git clone. So this would clone the repo to our system, and that's what would give you as an output there, just because it'll take a little bit as it's downloading all the objects in. And then we'll want to change our directory, which I just like to use the quick open directory there. Open as an integrate terminal. So this will open up it as a folder here. I'll expand it. So we got lots of, so public we won't worry about today. We'll be worrying about the source because this is where our React code is and all of our components for this web application. But first, you're supposed to be able to download Node, which will let you run the React web app. So this is how you'll start your the Node package manager. So it would be, and then we'll want to install our packages just to make sure when we did our git clone that all our packages came with and nothing needed any updates. So once everyone gets to this point here, we can, if Gavin's able to keep an eye on the chat for me, if there's anyone that needs any, okay, great. So once we install the packages, this will let us actually run the app, which is pretty easy. It's just running start. And then it'll load it up on your local machine here. And then I'll show you what we're starting with here. So as everyone can see, we got if you guys can see that screen, just to make sure here. We have the side here, this will be the code. And then the cool thing with React, it lets us actually like edit as we, and then save, and then it'll automatically update the website. This is just with the compiler that it has when it does it. So like if I wanted to take out the nav bar, and then we could just do a save, and the nav bar takes away, and we can bring it back, and then it automatically updates. So this lets us like work on our project, and then whenever we make any changes, we can instantly see what's happening, and it'll help us with debugging and makes it a lot more seamless instead of just recompiling all the time and loading it all up. So if this is just what we'll basically be starting off with. So basically with a portfolio site, we want to have kind of like an about me section where it shows just like who you are, and you can personalize this to yourself and like add your own images, and kind of like you want to give a good intro to like what you're interested in, what you're looking for. And then you'd also want to have like a way for them to see your skills and technologies that you use. We are missing one section that's very valuable, which is the project section. So you want to be able to show your projects in a portfolio site, since that lets you show your future employers that there is like that you've worked on hands-on projects, and you can even, if they're web application based projects, you could even connect it right in, and then you can open it up, and then they can run your whole project through a web app. Else you could just link it to your GitHub, and then they can see that, and then it'll work out with that. But so first we'll actually start working on this, the project section, which basically right now we're just left with just the section set up here for us. Okay. Is everyone caught up here, and anyone just waiting for me here once we get to that point here? And if not, the code will be uploaded later. So if you guys do need to see it later, it will be there for us to use. So we want to first go into actually creating the container. So with HTML, we create containers and they're called divs, and it holds all of our components together and all of the text together. So like every single part of this will be inside a div of the website, because that lets us move it and manipulate it wherever we need. So we'll first start with creating a div. This will be holding all of our projects, and this is just like a basic full out div. And I'll show you what the Tailwind actually works like in action here. So this will first apply, like it centers the content with container, and then this will also apply a padding. And whenever you want to add multiple Tailwind styles in your CSS, you can just do a space, and then it will automatically apply it once you insert your the commands here. And then this will also apply padding, which will basically center and move our text in our HTML in the area that we want. And then this will also center it horizontally automatically, and setting it there. And then we can even just set the text to center. And then finally, this one will increase the horizontal padding to 40 at least. There we go. So this will be our basic div here that will build everything inside. And then set up here. And we'll set up another div. This will let us set up a flex container. So this will let us have like a certain side of a div. So with a commonality with web development, there's lots of divs and there's lots of sections. You want to separate your visuals in, because it lets you move it around and keep it all from piling on top of each other, basically. So we'll add another styles in here. I'll do a quick save once I finish this one here. So this will add us our flex layout here. And then this will add us our margin here, margin of 20. Here we'll just save. So as we can see, me adding those divs spread it out a little bit there. Spread out the about and the skills section. So it is doing something, these divs, because we're trying to just make sure everything's all separated properly. And then we were going to add in a little icon just to show like a separation between it, because there's little icons here that show up on each section. So this is a little like skew icon, and then it just basically separates her. So we can add a little code icon, which is imported. Code icon, and we'll set it to a and this actually sets up our that. There we go. So yeah, this will set up a little code icon here for us, which we can see right there. Just added it instantly in. So that's the cool thing with being able to develop. Personally, why I like web development is like way more reactive. Whenever you're doing something, you're changing something, and it does, and you can see it instantly, basically. So then we'll add a first heading, actually, because so with HTML, there's tons of headings that we can add. So H1, H2, and so on. It basically just shows you what basically lets you put different sizes of text. So H1s are usually you want for like sections, and like those are usually the largest. So it's like usually the one that catches the eye. So we want to add a little title that just says projects I've built, and then here we'll save it. As we can see, the styling without our Tailwind styling, it doesn't look that good, and it doesn't fit in with everything else. So we'll just copy the same thing as that the other ones we're following here. So this will set the small the text size here. So it sets the default font sizes, and these are all, so with Tailwind, once you have it set up, it lets you grab these classes from the index.css that it generates once it's set up. And then that's a cool thing. It basically, once we just add these class names, and then it will automatically style it for us, and then we don't have to worry about styling it. There we go. And that sets our text to white. And then try that. There we go. Just like everything else. And now it's fitting in a little bit nicer. And then here we'll add just some base holder text to kind of like fill it out. So usually you'd want to like say, like this is just to make it, because when we're doing web development, you don't want to be spending too much time on like focusing on writing everything fully there. This is just placeholder text, just so it looks like what it's going to look like when we actually add our stuff in. So it'll just help everything get filled out, and then once we get to the point of wanting to add our actual personal stuff, then it will let us and it will work easy. We'll just have to change text over. We'll add these in here. So this just centers the text, and then so this is before I add the styling here, which it just added some basic styling there once, so it wasn't too big of a change, but once there, then here we'll end this. We'll end it off here. So this is just the title section. We want to have that separated from our projects. So we're still inside the project div for all of like the full project section, but we want to be separated from our title and our project so that they don't mesh together and we can keep things separate. So we'll first set up the project grid div here. There we go. So this is going to help us out with keeping everything separate and just having our projects in the place that we want them. So we'll add our flex again here. And then this will just apply negative margins. And then, so we don't see much there yet, but once we start actually adding our stuff in here. So we're gonna, so there's the A key tag in our in HTML lets us actually add links to our components that we're using on HTML. So this will let us actually click on things and then get brought to a web page. So anything you click on that has a link on a web page is wrapped in these tags, and it lets you actually I actually forgot one thing. We actually need a way to grab our data. So I'll show you how this works. Our project data is stored for us already. It's in JSON format. So if you can see there, we have 4 separate projects that are linked to an image, and we have this set up in JSON, so it lets in our JavaScript file as data. So it lets us kind of store it separately. And then whenever we want to import other data and do anything, all we have to do is change our data file, and it will automatically adjust to us because we'll actually add a function in our projects file that will automatically fill out the projects and then organize it accordingly, at least. So, and then this is how our skills are actually working from this too. It's just basically importing the skills. Just you could put in whatever you wanted, and then it would put it in there for you, at least. So we'll be putting that in here, which that's what I forgot here for a little bit. So we're going to have to call this mapping of the projects function here. So we'll map, and then we'll create a variable here, project, and then there, and then there we go. Okay. So this will let us actually set up our projects here, and then everything in here will let us actually add JavaScript variables in, and then we'll be able to code it there. So we'll add this in here. Let's just do href. So this is the href. So this lets us add a project link. So as we've seen in the data there, we wanted to be able to we have a link variable in our JSON data. So we want to be able to access that. So that's what that will do for us. So I'll just basically grab our project and then give us and grab our link from it, which we provided in the data file. Let's set our class names here again. Okay. And there. And then we'll add something else in here as well. Okay. So then this will add we're going to be adding actually our divs on top of, this. So once we create our link, then when you hover over top of it, we're going to be actually bringing up a kind of text box just showing like a little description of what it's going to look like here, like what our project is, and it lets us write that in here. Let me get the basic in here. So their image. This would just be basically our alt text. So if it wasn't able to load, then this would be the what would show up here for it, because you always want to, just in case there is any screen readers, then it would get picked up by the alt text, which is for accessibility, at least with the site. And this will actually grab our project image from the file that we're using for our data. There we go. And then this is, so next we're going to be creating our overlay that will hover over top. So we'll let that up here. Okay, so this will just set up our padding again. Going too fast for everyone here if anyone's coding with me. If not, there's nothing to worry about. It's going to be in the GitHub later, so you can just do even a pull, a get pull using the new Git commands that you download, and then you could just pull it and it will be there. And then you could, if you wanted to use this for an actual job, you'd probably want to edit it and actually use it for and change it around for yourself. And then hopefully you'll be able to show off your skills after building it through that. And then we'll give you a bit of a foundation to build off of. So this adds our hover. Hover. Oh, there. Okay. Oh, I did do a border of 44. Okay. Yeah. And there we go. As you can see, this is before we get everything sorted in here, but it's just we're in a work in progress here. Title font. Okay, and then we'll add our project subtitle here. So this will be pulling our subtitle data from the JSON that we're passing through. This will be our title here. Okay. author. Sets our fonts up here. Yeah, but it's really handy with how Tailwind works. At least it just lets us easily just add it as a class name, and we don't really have to worry about it, which makes it much nicer to work with. Especially since we wouldn't have to save two files instead of we just have to save the file that we're working in, and the auto compiler and hosting will work for us immediately. Okay, this will set up our title.
You do have a quick question. Does the order of the classes in Tailwind matter?
Ordering classes? No, it doesn't matter which way you put the classes in, because this just grabs whatever classes you're wanting to apply the style to. So you could put it in any order, and just make sure you have a space in between them, because that separates what classes you're going to be applying that HTML tag to. That was a good question. Thank you. I think that was all right. And then, yeah, feel free to ask any more questions too. I can help out, and then almost here too, and then we can even see the final product here with everyone. There we go. Okay, so I moved everything apart here properly. I think we might have some debugging to do here a bit, which is all right.
Yeah. Could I jump in here real quick?
Yeah.
I think you have quotes around like right there.
This one, that's the one, yeah.
Yeah, if you remove those, and on line 29 and 37.
Great. 37. Okay. There we go. Sorry about that. Thanks for this, Scaling. And then we should be here seeing all of it here. Almost. We'll just do another refresh. There we go. So it loads up here. And as we see, once we hover over top, it pulls up some basic description, because you want to give them a description when they can see it, and then a little title like what you built. So these are just GIFs running in the background, actually. So this lets you look like it's interactive, so people can see like how it works. So I'd recommend that too. Like if you have something that's very nice on the front end, and you can kind of do a little walkthrough with a GIF, and then put it on your portfolio site. Then when people see that, they look at that, it looks like you can see how your application works and how it solves a problem for the user, which is great. But yeah, I hope everyone was able to follow along. If they were, if not, I can I'll be making I can actually show to make a commit right here for everyone, and then you'll be able to pull, and you'll be able to have the full access. But yeah, I highly recommend it, going through and actually looking through the whole project and like building out whatever sections you feel like you want, and even like building off of it, because like this adds some good styles, and like you can even like bring in your own styles and your own little imports you want, and then you put that on the resume, and you've worked with React and HTML and CSS, because that's what this is. It's a React web application. So I hope you guys gain some value out of that. And yeah, thank you. I think that's, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask.
Awesome. I posted it in the chat, tailwindui.com. They have a bunch of templates and stuff to be able to like take and play around with. And they have like their docs and stuff like that too, that you can see. Also like Chat GPT is pretty good with like rendering Tailwind stuff too. So if you want like AI to generate that stuff, yeah. Someone was asking, what's the difference between Tailwind and Bootstrap? nothing in terms of like what it's like. What's the difference between a car and a vehicle? Like they both, or a car and a truck, they both drive. They both get you to like A to B. One is just styled differently, and the other one is styled differently. Yeah, that's really it. Bootstrap, I think, is a little bit more dated, and so a lot of people are moving to Tailwind. It integrates just a little bit nicer with certain things too, but the biggest thing is just how it looks and that sort of thing. Now, I also wanted to share a little feedback form with everybody. And if you could take like 2 or 3 minutes out to fill that out, that would be great. We have questions on there, like if you want to see backend stuff and other little projects and things like that. So we can get an idea for other workshops. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, thank you. That's great.
Yeah. We'll stay on for a couple more minutes, but thank you for coming. Yeah. I know it's short. It's very difficult to boil entirety of web dev stuff into an hour long. Um, so hopefully this gets you exposure and now you're able to like have something to play around with and like upload or make it your own. Um, yeah. Someone's
Yeah.
asking, what is your favorite platform for portfolio hosting? I will
I
tell you. Sorry, go ahead.
I actually have one that's pretty good too. Is like you can actually even host them on GitHub yourself, actually too. Like
Yeah,
if you hosted it, like if you upload it to your GitHub, and then there's like websites that like will give you a tutorial on how to do this, but actually the only downside I'd say is that the domain name kind of gets wrapped in with your username. Yeah, the GitHub pages. Yeah, as Artem was saying, GitHub pages it will give you basically your username for um, GitHub and then like .github.io and then slash whatever your repository is called. But it's a very handy way. It's free at least, so you can and you just have to push it to GitHub and it's hosted there and you don't have to worry about it. That's a way to do it, but you could also go through hosting as well. It's just you might need to the Netfly and Versa. I've never used those before, but that's for sure.
yeah. I second Netlify. I am a strong believer in Netlify. I love it so much. And they have like you can just upload free websites and stuff with like React or other things, Gatsby and Astro. You can link it up to your repo as well. So when you push to your repo, it will automatically build and push it. Um, there's tons of neat little things. You have like forms as well that you can build, and Netlify handles all that stuff and spam detection and everything like that. Um, so it's very good. There is a bit of setup, and if you have a custom domain, you have to like figure that stuff out too. It's a little bit tricky, but yeah, the two I was gonna say: GitHub Pages and Netlify.
Nice. Oh, sweet.
Yeah. Um, just to further the Netlify thing, I use it for like client stuff too. It saves them on like hosting fees and everything. Um, so yeah, if I'm making a project for someone, I will stick with Netlify. Even like my own site and everything is all done through Netlify. But I have seen like professional resumes and stuff. People just use their GitHub, and that is completely acceptable as well. You will get like put in the waste bin or something like that if recruiters see that it's whoever Samuel Kirk dot
Yeah,
github.com or something like that, right? So yeah.
yeah.
When will the
Exactly.
video be uploaded? Either it'll be like tomorrow. It'll be tomorrow or Thursday, one of the two. If you're part of the Discord, there is a notification that goes out.
Sounds good. Well, if there's any other questions, great. Thank you for coming, everyone. If you enjoyed it, we'll hang on here if anyone has any more questions. But yeah, great. There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great.